being built by China for Pakistan. US President-elect Donald Trump's 100% tariff threat to Brics grouping. Donald Trump says that go find another sucker. Dozens, including children, killed in stampede. This stampede was following clashes that took place at the Kenya soccer match. Thousands rally after Georgia government scraps EU bid. At least 100 people have been detained during Georgia's pro-EU protests. All right, the big story that we are tracking on India Global today is the fact that the world could see a second wave of tariff war as President-elect Donald Trump takes office come January 2025. US President-elect Donald Trump has threatened a 100% tariff on the Brics grouping. Which are these Brics grouping? This is your Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa. And this, of course, includes India if they undercut the US dollar or replace it with another currency for international transactions. Trump's remarks follow a Brics meeting that took place in October that discussed boosting non-dollar transactions. The Brics grouping comprises, as I said, of 5 core countries, but there are now additional countries that have also been added to it. Now, in a scathing online post, President-elect said that this morning he is not going to stand and watch the Brics move away from the dollar. The President-elect said that the Brics countries can go find another quote-unquote sucker. But the group won't be able to replace the dollar in international trade with another currency. The Brics countries, which also now includes Egypt, Iran and UAE as well, discussed boosting non-dollar transactions and strengthening local currencies at a summit that was held in Kazan in Russia last month. A joint declaration for the strengthening of correspondent banking networks within Brics and enabling settlements in local currencies in line with Brics' cross-border payment initiative was secured at the summit in October. But Russia's President Vladimir Putin indicated at the end of the summit that no alternatives have been made so far to compete with the SWIFT financial system that exists right now, which is, of course, Belgian. India, too, has said it's against de-dollarization. In October, Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar said that neither a part of India's economic policy nor the country's political or strategic policies are in that line. But in cases where trade partners do not take dollars or when issue emerges due to trade policies, workarounds are, of course, looked at. That's what Dr. Jaishankar also mentioned. All right, let's get in Professor Santosh Mehrotra, who's a senior economist, joining me from Centre for Development, University of Bath in UK, to really talk more about what this means for Brics countries, what's this threat all about, and more importantly, is this just posturing ahead of President-elect taking over, or is there more to it? Thank you so much, Professor Mehrotra, for taking out the time and speaking to me on India Global. Let me start by asking you that how do you read this in no uncertain terms? There's a very clear and a direct message that has come in from President-elect Donald Trump that he wants to re-establish the dominance of the US dollar.
Well, he's posturing, there's just no question about it. The dominance of the dollar is not going away very soon. This is very clear, Gaurie. You see, he was making a noise about essentially China and Russia. You see, Russia has been the chair of Brics this year. The summit took place in Kazan in Russia, and there have been lots of activities among the Brics countries that have gone on in Russia for that reason, which is understandable. Now, the closest trading partners in the setup of Brics is essentially Russia and China. So Russia and China, he's not going to be able to bring about a rupture between them. And his fulmination and I call them fulminations as of now, and he does have a reputation for fulminating, are essentially about China in particular, because of China's
No, of course, it
exports
is about
to the
China and
United
Russia
States.
predominantly. But Professor Mehrotra, do you see him coming good on some of these threats? Because
No, no.
these are
No,
very
no,
strong
not on
posturing.
us. That's the distinction, Gaurie, that I'm about to make. That is precisely the distinction that I'm about to make. His fulminations at a second rung are slightly against President Lula of Brazil. But South Africa and India don't figure in this. India is a major trading partner of the USA. And I don't think we are anywhere close to a Brics currency. None whatsoever. There's no such inkling, even an inkling of such. There is a a document which was discussed at the summit. A 40-page document was put out there. It has a certain amount of meat. There is no question about it, but it is a proposal. We are very far away from it. And of course, these are fulminations on the part of President-elect Trump. It's very, very unlikely that he will do
Then,
anything against
okay.
India.
Then let me ask you this, Professor Mehrotra, let me ask you this, that for every possible economic scenario, the president-elect's answer as of now seems to be more tariffs. Do you think law of diminishing returns will probably catch up with this singular economic direction?
Inevitably, he was making these kinds of threats all the time. There will be a certain degree of protectionism. Protectionism is the catchword these days, and certainly the United States wants to bring some manufacturing back to the, and they're also sort of somewhat fulminating against Mexico, I have to tell you. Although Mexico is so far yet not a member, and it's a bit unlikely that they've even applied to the BRICS. So the bottom line is, it's not going to happen, not anytime soon. And in any case, as far as India is concerned, India has been trading with Russia in respect of oil for some years now, since the Ukraine war broke out. And India and Russia have, from 1950 to roughly 1990, in fact, 80 certainly, was trading in rupees with Russia. And a lot of that similar arrangement operates currently between Russia and China, which have obviously come closer together. So let's just be very clear. We are at the bottom of the pile in the 5-country grouping, which he is fulminating against. And the main attack is against China, Russia, and against Brazil.
All right, Professor Mehrotra, thanks much for speaking to me on India Global with that perspective. All right, shifting, in fact, staying with the story and getting you a big voice, South Africa's Minister of Tourism spoke to me a short while back. Patricia Leon spoke about the prospect of tariffs, what it could possibly mean in Trump 2.0, and what can BRICS countries really do when it comes to the threat of Donald Trump, the fact that G20 is going to be all about Global South, and the fact that developing countries now need to come together when it is about big ticket challenges, including more tariffs under Trump 2.0. Listen in. I am in conversation with Ms. Patricia de Lille, who is the Minister of Tourism for Government of South Africa. We are talking at a time when there is enough and more happening when it comes to Global South and when it comes to BRICS as well. Thank you so much, ma'am, for taking out the time and speaking to NDTV.
Great pleasure, thank you.
India and South Africa are both very important members of the Global South, and Global South has some very important issues, climate being one of them, one of the most important, and the COP summit really proved that. In your assessment, how do you see the India-South Africa relationship ties, especially when it comes to climate, and can they become a leader when it comes to Global South, showing the way for some of the other countries around the world?
No, we're certainly on the side of India when it comes to climate change. And of course, India is correct in saying that it is not the developing nations, the Global South, that are responsible for climate change. All the so-called developed countries built their riches and their wealth on fossil fuels, cheap fossil fuels.
Yes.
And so we as a developing South have to pay for that. And it's not fair. It was not caused by the global South. And of course, the peanuts that is being offered by the developed world to mitigate the impact of climate change on the whole world, it's ludicrous, it's ridiculous. After having caused the problem, then say to the developing nations in the global South that you must go and fix it. So South Africa fully supports the stance of India when it comes to climate change issues.
South Africa now has the presidency of the G20. What are the key areas that South Africa wants to focus on in the G20? What about it, whether it is the focus on global South, whether it is the focus on technology for developing countries, what is it that is going to be the key focus for South Africa in its G20 presidentship?
Just last week, Tuesday and Wednesday in South Africa, South Africa and India came together to look at a just transition from fossil fuels to renewable energies and look at solutions as to how we can mitigate it. So when it comes to climate change issues, there's a very good relationship. But with us assuming the G20 chairpersonship, we're also taking forward the legacies of Indonesia, of India and Brazil when they were leading the G20 nations. We will be continue to build on that. And you know, as we invite all the G20 nations to our country in 2025, we can't wait. You know, South Africans are very warm-hearted people. We can't wait to welcome all the G20 members to our shores. But we also encourage people to stay and continue to explore the beauty of South Africa. So it's a very exciting year awaiting us in South Africa.
In terms of your view with regard to Brics, another very important multilateral institution, a platform where many countries are now wanting to be a part of, how do you see it, its potential, its outlook, given the challenges that the world is facing and the headwinds that exist right now?
Let me start with the G20. It's under the leadership of India, of the G20 leadership, that they came with a resolution to accept the African Union as a full member of the G20. And we want to thank India for that. And the BRICS partners represent millions of people in the global South. And again, it's an important platform to make sure that we look at how we trade amongst ourselves first. And that trade is growing. If you can see that India is our biggest partner in Asia, trading with South Africa and many other countries in Africa. We must, as the global South, as the G20, as BRICS, economic growth must be key on our agenda, inclusive economic growth, so that we deal with all the challenges that we face, like poverty, inequality.
I must ask you about the BRICS currency, its outlook amidst the commentary that's come in from President-elect Donald Trump, who's very categorically said that he's not going to allow anybody or any possibility of an alternate currency arrangement that may challenge or threaten the dominance of the US dollar. How do you see the prospects of the economic arrangement that the BRICS countries have really been talking about and have progressed much on, as well as on the BRICS currency?
Well, there's already an existing agreement that the BRICS currency, amongst ourselves as the BRICS nations, we will trade in our own currency. It is definitely give us value for money, and that has been happening. The debate about whether the BRICS countries want to shift to the dollarization of that, it's not on the agenda. What is on the agenda is that we want to trade as Brics countries in our own currencies amongst ourselves, and nobody can stop us because it's to the benefit of the nations of the global south.
All right, shifting focus now to Bangladesh, where Dhaka continues to remain on the edge. At least 3 Hindu priests from ISKCON have been in fact reportedly arrested. On your screens, we'll keep playing some of those latest visuals that are coming in as far as what's happening in Bangladesh. As I said, the civil unrest is what is really unfolding as far as Bangladesh is concerned. Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee has now called for a UN peacekeeping force to be deployed in Bangladesh. She has also demanded Prime Minister's personal intervention to secure the safety of religious minorities in the violence-hit country. Addressing the Bengal Assembly, CM Banerjee said she had spoken to the chief of ISKCON's Kolkata unit and extended her sympathies and support. She stressed if Indians are attacked in Bangladesh, then we cannot tolerate it. We can, in fact, bring back our people. Government of India can take this matter up with the UN, so a peacekeeping force can be sent. That's what Mamata Banerjee has said. She said that she's of course now seeking, she's not interfering in the internal matters of another country, but this requires intervention. The ISKCON row kicked off with the arrest of Chinmay Krishnadasa Brahmachari last week, a former member. He was arrested from Dhaka's Hazrat Shahabal International Airport, denied bail and sent to jail on charges of sedition. His arrest, the interim Bangladesh government headed by Nobel Peace Prize Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus, has been misconstrued, is what Dhaka has been saying all along. All right, shifting focus now from one neighboring country to another, from Bangladesh to Pakistan, where, well, Pakistan also remains on the edge. A report by Pakistan Institute for Conflict and Security Studies has released, in fact released on Sunday, indicates just that. November has turned out to be the deadliest month for Islamabad's security forces. 68 personnel from security have been killed so far in the month of November alone. The report also claims at least 245 additional people have so far been killed in a series of terrorist attacks and clashes that took place across the country. The month has ranked as the second deadliest month of the year, following August, which saw 254 deaths, including 92 civilians and 108 terrorist, 54 security personnel. In terms of security personnel casualties, November was the deadliest month of 2024, surpassing October, which saw 62 security force deaths. Khyber Pakhtunkhwa has been the hardest hit region, with 50 terrorist activities and attacks leading to 71 deaths, 85 injuries. The Khurram district witnessed one of the worst tribal clashes in recent times, with 120 people killed so far. That's what Dawn is saying. And in fact, according to the report, Balochistan reported 20 terror attacks resulting in 60 deaths, including 26 security personnel, 25 civilians and 9 terrorists. The data also revealed that terrorist-related fatalities in 2024 have surpassed 1,000, reaching 1,082 in the first 11 months, with over 600, in fact, I beg your pardon, 800 terror activities being reported so far this year, compared to 645 last year, pretty much explaining and reflecting the kind of security situation that's unfolding in Pakistan. All right, we slip into a very short break. We come back on the other side and talk more about international students. What happens to them during Trump 2.0? There are enough and more threats now. What is the ground reality? We come back and decode for you. Stay with us.
What's wrong with the car?
It's okay, lads. I'm with the AA.
Ah,
Bombay mix.
Because the AA has more expert patrols across the country, you'll be back on the road in no time. No wonder more people choose the AA. Join today.
I've got the scratch cards.
What's going on?
Musical scratch cards!
It's a Bennett family tradition. And go.
Let's go
else for me. Pass it to Katie.
Oh, Katie, what did you say?
Hey, Dad. Bless you in the arm. Oh, that's brilliant.
Add some play to Christmas with scratch cards from the National Lottery.
This year, so many people won't be home for Christmas. Not everyone has a place to call home, with the comfort of a warm bed and a roof over their heads. Or somewhere safe to wake up on Christmas morning. Not everyone has a loving family to share their Christmas day. As we celebrate in our own homes this Christmas, please think of those without a home to call their own, and help the Salvation Army reach out to them this Christmas. Just £19 could help us give people a fresh start off the streets, bring comfort and support to families in poor housing, and get youngsters like Jake started with a place to call home. So please, think of those with no home this Christmas and call 0800 840 1234 to give £19 to the Salvation Army. Thank you.
Children affected by the war in Ukraine still need our help. Hospitals, homes and schools have been destroyed. Energy supplies cut off. Families are still displaced from their homes. UNICEF is working for all children affected by the war in Ukraine, providing clean water, family hygiene kits and safe spaces to rest, learn and play. To find out how you can help, search UNICEF Ukraine online or text Ukraine to 84901. In my years reporting on war, I've seen its impact on children. But I've seen how UNICEF makes a difference day by day. £25 could help provide emergency supplies like safe water, maternity kits, or essential vaccines. Search UNICEF Ukraine or text Ukraine to 84901 and help children caught up in this terrible war today.
Welcome back. You're watching India Global, shifting our focus now to the one story that parents, students, families around the world are most worried about, including a lot from India. Several American universities have issued travel advisories for their international students, and the reason for that is they've urged them to return to the US before President-elect Donald Trump's inauguration in January next year, amidst concerns that there could be travel bans in place like the one that he had instituted last time around. Trump will take the oath of office on the 20th of January, has announced that he will sign several executive orders on the issues of economy and immigration on his very first day as the 47th president of the United States. This has reignited concerns over disruptions caused during his first term in 2017, when nationals from 7 predominantly Muslim countries faced an immediate travel ban. Amid concerns over the disruption caused by travel bans during his first term as president, several top US universities are now issuing travel advisories for their international students as well as faculty that may be traveling outside the country around Trump's inauguration. All right, Sudhanshu, let me then start by asking you this, that what does this mean in terms of the advisories that have been issued by universities, both for students as well as for faculty members?
Right now, the travel advisories that have occurred, first of all, let's clarify a few things. One is these are very few, a handful, 3 to 4 universities, and not even university travel advisory, but advisories from the International Student Office of the university that have come out to kind of let the international students that they are already part of to be a little bit more apprehensive, a little bit more aware of the situation, and to be careful of it. What does the travel advisory say? Is to come back before the inauguration of Donald Trump because of the rhetoric against immigration. Now, I think you need to break that down further. First of all, I think it's a little bit of fear-mongering. The reason I say that, knowing that there has been a somewhat student ban in place in the previous administration, completely acknowledging that, but I think it's fear-mongering because right now, the situation is completely different from when the student ban came in. When the student ban that affected F1 specifically, F1 visa holders specifically, it was during COVID. And the nuances were a little different because during that time, students were taking online courses. They were either not in the country or outside of the country. And the Trump administration wanted to kind of, the hawks, the immigration hawks, as they say, wanted to kind of stop that from happening. And they were, prohibiting international students on F1 visas to come back or leave the country, etc. In this case, that isn't there. The situation of COVID or online classes isn't there. Under law, if you're legally coming into the United States with your F1 visa, then you're allowed to study there if you're on full-time courses. And you can't dilute that or divert that or not allow students who have come here from legal means to not be able to come here and stay and at any time or appropriate times that the university appeals to. So I think it's a little unfair, and I understand, like I'm saying that myself, but it's a little unfair for there to be such a panic, or for universities to create a panic. I mean, think about it. Indian students that come to India during this time come for family reasons. Someone's having a wedding, someone's birthday, it's the new year, and you're having to literally last minute change up flights, coming back and shifting those flights and plans. I mean, it does cause unnecessary unease. Right now, the rhetoric that has been against immigration has been against undocumented, illegal immigration and stopping and preventing that.
All right, Sudhanshu, thanks much for giving that perspective that it could just be fear-mongering as far as those advisories are concerned. All right, we are slipping into a very short break. We come back on the other side, talk more about, well, what really is the latest that's happening in Syria as it descends into utter chaos. What does it mean? We bring you the very latest on that big story. Stay with us.
This mother rhino would do anything to protect her baby. But when poachers come armed with guns and chainsaws, how can she protect herself? Please adopt a rhino with WWF for just £3 a month. Call 0800 035 7660 or search WWF Adopt a Rhino. We'll send you this adoption pack with a cuddly toy. 3 rhinos are killed every day. We need your help to keep them safe.
I've been thinking, I want to plan my funeral so it feels more like a celebration. My parents always said I was born dancing. I just love it. Bhangra, disco, even line dancing. So when my time comes, I want to have music, dancing, the lot.
With over 150 years experience, you can count on Co-op Funeral Care to help you pre-plan the funeral you want. To find out more, visit Co-op Funeral Care or give us a call.
Christmas can be challenging at the best of times.
Okay, Mum.
But for families who have lost or are losing a loved one, it can be overwhelming.
They're here, they're here. Oh, honey. Hello. So pleased to see you.
So amid the anger, could you give £23 to fund an hour of care? In between the stress...
It's not too late. No, you're not too late.
Could you fund an hour of comfort? And amongst the grief...
You're not alone.
Could you fund an hour of joy?
Okay, Mum. You all right?
This isn't the kind of Christmas anyone ever wanted.
But with your help, we can be there to make it the best one possible.
To give £23 for an hour of care, comfort and joy, please call 0800 810 0212, text CARE to 70488 or search Marie Curie Christmas. Thank you.
Life in your 50s doesn't slow down, and if you're like me, you've done enough waiting. That's why I'm with Cover Today, the only over 50s life insurer with no waiting period. Unlike other insurers, who could make you wait up to 2 years for full cover, with Cover Today, you're fully covered from day one. Plus, you get your choice of a £125 gift card. Don't wait around to look after your loved ones. Get Cover Today.
To find out more, call our friendly UK team or visit covertoday.co.uk.
This is an urgent appeal from UNICEF UK. Conflict in Gaza is cutting off supplies of food and clean water. Thousands of children are malnourished and sick. UNICEF is working non-stop treating children like 2-year-old Lean with life-saving therapeutic food. Her story is just one of thousands. Search UNICEF UK Gaza or text Gaza to 84902 and help bring hope for children caught in this conflict.
This is India Global. I'm Gaurie Dwivedi. We now turn our attention to probably one of the biggest stories that's happening around the world, which is the latest unfolding in West Asia, the crisis and the chaos that Syria has now been thrown into. Amidst the Israel-Hezbollah ceasefire, West Asia's theatre of war has now completely shifted to Syria, and you are seeing that on your screens. The map really tells you where exactly the epicenter is of what's unfolding right now in Syria. As the rebels continue gaining ground after taking the country's second biggest city of Aleppo, the Assad regime is striking back with Russia's help. Syrian military is rushing reinforcements to the northwest and launched airstrikes on Sunday to push back insurgents who seized the country's largest city of Aleppo. In the latest, Iran pledged to help the government counter the surprise offensive. Tehran has been a key political and military ally of Syrian president in the country's long-running civil war. Iranian foreign minister met President Assad in Damascus on Sunday as Syria launched a counterattack against a surprise assault by the insurgents. Al-Assad regime troops have created a strong defensive line in northern Hama as they attempt to stall the insurgents' momentum. The surge in fighting has raised the prospect of another violent, destabilizing front reopening in West Asia at a time when there is constant fighting still as far as Hamas in Gaza is concerned. It also risks drawing Russia and Turkey into direct heavy fighting against each other. Both these countries have their own interests to protect in Syria. Meanwhile, Arab leaders, including Jordan's King Abdullah II and UAE's President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, also have called Assad to express their solidarity with what's really happening in Syria. All right, let's get in the two big voices joining me on the show. Dr. Shobhadar Chaudhary, who is the founder of the Middle East Insights program, and we had Dr. Awad, who's in fact a Syrian, joining me on the show to really give us a sense of how things are unfolding. Dr. Awad, let me start with you, sir. As things are unfolding right now in Syria, the developments have been so fast-paced. They've really changed the game, haven't they, in the last 2 to 3 days? Talk to us about how do you see things unfolding and what could be behind the surprise attack?
Thank you, Gaurie. I think what happened exactly what's going on in Gaza for the last 14 months, that the war Israeli expanded into Lebanon, and when the ceasefire took place in Lebanon, Prime Minister Netanyahu threatened the Syrian president, and he told him that you're playing with fire. And the intelligence of Israel and Turkey met together and immediately launching the attack by these terrorist organization, which is affiliated to Al-Qaeda, which is recognized by the international community as a terrorist organization along with ISIS. And therefore, we know that out of the 28 military groups are active in the occupied part of Syria, northern eastern part by Turkey and northwestern part by United States, are supported by both the countries and are destroying totally Syria. So therefore, immediately those troops, have been moved inside Syria. And there was a truce between us in Astana, between Syria, Iran, Russia, and Turkey, that there should be no firing, no attack by any side, neither on the opposition forces or nor on the Syrian part. So therefore, these rebels, we all know that these are actually Uyghur, Uzbek, and Tajik who have joined, and they are not even a Syrian.
Dr. Awad, that before I get in, Shobhadar, let me ask you this, that given how unstable the Assad regime looks right now, in your assessment, do you think the Bashar al-Assad regime could actually survive, or there is a very serious chance of Syria falling into further chaos if his government falls?
No, absolutely. There is a strong support for the Syrian government. By the way, this is not the first time Aleppo was taken by the by the terrorist organization. We have already liberated the Syrian army, liberated along with the help of the Russian, the Iranian, the Syrian army, the Popular Front of Iraq, and Hezbollah fighters who have liberated in 2015, and then we liberated largest part of Syria actually, and we could do it again, and that's what's happening. I think what we should see, Gaurie, the situation in Syria is not in isolation. What's going on in the rest of the West Asia, because this is part of the destabilizing of Syria. If the terrorist organization take Damascus, they will take Baghdad, they will take Tehran, and they may come back into South Asia as well.
Okay. Dr. Chaudhary, respond to what Dr. Awad is saying in terms of the larger ramifications of what's unfolding in Syria.
So thank you, Gaurie, and Dr. Weil is actually more, he has much more of indigenous experience than me. But couple of points. The rebels, basically, it comes from an umbrella group called as Hayat al-Sham, Tahrir al-Sham, HTS. And as he said, there are a lot of foreigners over there, Turkish even. They don't speak Arabic. They're from the outside. They started on 27th of November from the northwestern town of Idlib and started taking over Hama, Homs, Dara, Aleppo. Aleppo was taken over by 29th of November. At the same time, all of this is not happening in isolation because the Lebanon-Israel ceasefire, in spite of being functional, has not been legitimately followed by both sides. There are still skirmishes going on. Now that Iran, Hezbollah were weakened supposedly, then Syria, which was seen as the state through which weapons were taken over to Lebanon, Israel was very cautious about it. And this kind of an revolution or counter revolution, something was supposed to happen. Now, HTS, it broke away from ISIS in 2014. And it is
okay,
like
for
a
our viewers, I just want to
reincarnation
keep it
of
simple.
Jabhat
HTS
al-Nusra.
is the primary outfit that is now leading
Umbrella
the
group.
anti-government attack, so to say, on the Assad regime right now. Yes, Dr. Chaudhary, you were talking about the timing of this. How do you relate the timing of the fact that it happened just after the ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah?
Because the supposed rhetoric is that Iran, Hezbollah, Russia, which is a little, difficult in its own position right now. Russia tried very hard with Syria and Turkey to mend their ties. All of them were weakening. And that is one of the reasons why this was the right time for the HTS to emerge. Now, at the same time, HTS is not the only faction. There are so many other umbrella groups. Now, if they start resurging again, HTS will have problem.
Okay, let's take that one final 30-second response from Dr. Awad. How do you see this going forward? As Dr. Chaudhary said, that it's not going to be as easy, even for the primary umbrella outfit, HTS, that's fronting this.
I think, let me say it, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, because this is a terrorist organization. It was formed in 2017 on its own, and the Golani is a part of Al-Qaeda. Even the United States knows they have supported them. They supported all these groups, Tahrir al-Sham, Ahrar al-Sham, and Jabhat Watani al-Tahrir. All these groups, actually 21 out of these groups supported by the United States and Israel. So I think what we are looking here as using terrorism as a tool to achieve political objectives.
All right. Thank you so much, both of you, for taking out the time and really decoding a story that I'm going to keep coming back to in coming days. All right. Shifting focus now away from Syria on to America. Well, there's been a massive flip-flop that has taken place in America under President Biden. From his earlier stance, he has completely changed his view when it comes to his son, Hunter Biden. In fact, he has now been given the presidential pardon. The move effectively reverses Biden's past promises not to use the extraordinary powers of the presidency for the benefit of his family members. The unprecedented Sunday pardon has been granted for a range of federal felony gun and tax convictions. Hunter Biden was convicted in June in Delaware federal court of 3 felonies for purchasing a gun in 2018. And as per prosecutors, he lied on a federal form by claiming he was not illegally using or addicted to drugs. Hunter was set to stand trial in September in California case accusing him of failing to pay at least $1.4 million in taxes. But he agreed to plead guilty to misdemeanor and felony charges in a surprise move hours after jury selection was set to begin with. Hunter was pleading guilty in that case to spare his family more pain and embarrassment. That's what he said. And this after the gun trial aired some salacious details about his struggles with a crack cocaine addiction. The tax charges against Biden Jr. carry up to 17 years behind bars, and the gun charges are punishable by up to 25 years in prison. That's what the presidential pardon has actually taken and freed Biden Jr. from. Now, what's more bizarre, the sweeping pardon covers not just those offenses, it also covers any other offenses, quote unquote, against the United States, which he has committed or may have committed or taken part in during the period from 1st of January 2014 till 1st of December 2024. So all past demeanor and acts of Hunter Biden has been pardoned by the president, sitting president, and his father. Let's get in Nicholas from UK. He's a journalist and a former BBC editor to really talk more about the ramifications of this. Appreciate you joining us and taking out the time. So my question to you really is that, you know, this is hypocrisy probably in its shining hour, where the president was on record time and again saying that he's not going to interfere and let the Department of Justice continue with its proceedings and let the law take its course. But here he is, weeks before demitting office, using his extraordinary powers as the president.
Well, I think my reaction would be one of enormous surprise, and I'll explain why. I don't have an axe to grind in US politics, but I did study law very many years ago, and I know how important in our country, in Britain, and indeed in many other countries, is the rule of law. And what seems to be going on here is a relaxation of the rule of law for personal reasons. I'm widening this a bit. It's not just about Hunter Biden. It's about the expectation that President-elect Trump will also pardon himself retrospectively for things he's been already convicted for. Now, I don't know if that will be the case, but that is the wide expectation. And if our Constitution means anything, it means you uphold the rule of law. And in other words, you let the legal process take place regardless of who's in power. Governments do not have a right to interfere with the legal process. That's a very, very solid principle in Britain. And I'm just surprised that it isn't any longer in the United States. And I think the present generation might have forgotten the famous incident that brought down former President Nixon, captured very neatly in that 2008 film Frost Nixon. Nixon, as president, claiming that a president could not break the law. And that claim effectively brought him down. What's happened to the rule of law in the United States? That's my feeling.
That's a great example that you've given, and really highlights that, you know, sitting at a distance from what's happening in American democracy, one really sees how the ideals that are enshrined in the American Constitution, which they hold so dear to, are not being followed. Then let me ask you this, that as President Biden really demits office in a couple of weeks, this could really be his legacy, isn't it? That he spent the 4 years, a large part of his administration and his presidency, talking about the fact that he will let the law take its own course, and weeks before demitting office, he just went back on all of that. That may effectively be his legacy.
Well, I suspect not. I suspect his legacy will be rather greater than that. In other words, it'll be concerned with more important things. Perhaps we should wait to judge his legacy until he has demitted office, as you say. But I think this will blow over, to be honest. But I think you will next be looking at this subject when President-elect Trump takes office and perhaps wants to follow the Biden example. And when people criticize him for giving himself immunity from prosecution retrospectively, then he will say, but Biden did it, why can't I do it? Now, admittedly, in Biden's case, it's not about himself. It's about his son. That perhaps makes it a little bit more tenuous, I would say. He's not talking about his own situation. But you used the word hypocrisy. I don't think I'd go quite that strong. I'm just going to say enormous surprise that he has gone back on his word by freeing, I mean, that's a strange word to use, but by acquitting his son of the various charges against him, which, let's face it, were charges by the state against the individual about escaping tax, which are considered to be quite serious offences when you take account of the amounts involved. So I've said surprise, and I will say disappointment, because I believe that a country that's as strong in its democracy as the United States should show a better commitment to the rule of law, even when it affects individual cases. So you're right, it'll be a blemish to Mr. Biden's reputation, but I think perhaps it'll only be a tiny part of it when we consider the strength of his presidency overall.
Okay. All right, sir. Thank you so much for speaking to me on an issue I believe that most Americans would also have a very strong view on, given the fact that it talks about the very backbone and spine of their democratic framework. Thank you so much for speaking to me on India Global. All right, on that note, we slip into a very short break. We come back on the other side with lots more news and lots more perspectives. Stay with us.
What you got, man?
Turn that resistance up. Give me what you can.
That was lit. Just hold it here, team, and breathe. Let's hustle hard. Let's get it.
Nice work. Smashing it over there.
Dreams come true, come to the other side. I can feel energy. I believe in healing me. All I need is sweet release in the freedom of the night. Freedom of the night.
Join me and the Style Squad. Shop now exclusively at Freeman's.
This year, go all in on joy with our beautifully crafted lifelike trees. Save up to 50% during our biggest sale of the season at balsamhill.co.uk.
Hello?
Hello? I need help.
Hello? I desperately need a place to stay.
Every 10 minutes, we get a call like this from another homeless young person. This Christmas, we're expecting more frightened young people to call the Centrepoint helpline than ever before. We must answer their calls. Please, call 0808 281 8005 today or search Centrepoint 5 online to start your gift of just £5 a month. In the months ahead, you'll know your gift is helping more homeless young people get the safety and support they urgently need. Thank you.
Shop Etsy Cyber Spectacular until December 3rd for up to 30% off items crafted by small businesses. For savings on gifts that say, I get you, Etsy has it.
The war in Ukraine continues to put children in terrible danger. Homes, schools and hospitals have been destroyed, energy supplies cut off. Families are still displaced from their homes, now facing a harsh winter without warm clothes, fuel and shelter. To find out how you can help, search UNICEF Ukraine online or text WINTER to 84901. In my years reporting on war, I've seen its impact on children, but I've seen how UNICEF makes a difference day by day. UNICEF is providing warm clothes, boots and blankets to keep children and babies warm, and generators and fuel to help power vital services. £32 could help provide warm winter clothes for a baby or young child. Search UNICEF Ukraine or text WINTER to 84901 and help make a difference for children today.
Welcome back. This is India Global. Let's get you some other important stories coming in today. First up, ahead of the Navy Day celebrations, which will take place on 4th of December, Navy Chief Admiral Dinesh Tripathi has confirmed the test of submarine launching ballistic missiles, demonstrating significant advancements in naval defense capabilities, even as the naval chief highlighted several critical concerns regarding Pakistan's military and naval developments, emphasizing that Pakistan is prioritizing weapons over welfare. He further added that there is a surprising growth in Pakistan's naval capabilities because China built 8 new submarines for Pakistan. The naval chief stressed the importance of closely monitoring the Chinese Navy's presence in the Indian Ocean region, especially their surveillance ships, and said that India is fully aware of the activities of each Chinese vessel. The Navy has kept a close watch over extra-regional forces present in the region, including PLA units, be it warships or research vessels. And in fact, my colleague Vishnu Som gets you all the very latest in terms of what this commentary means and what are the larger plans as far as Navy is concerned. Listen in.
In one of the most newsy press conferences being addressed by a Navy chief ahead of India's Navy Day, the Chief of Navy Staff announced that India had launched a submarine-launched ballistic missile a couple of days back. This is the first official confirmation from the government. The missile itself was successfully launched, but when I asked him about the overall success of the mission, he seemed to indicate that it would take a few more days to figure out more about the trajectory of the missile. So whether it was 100% success or not, we do not know. The test of a submarine-launched ballistic missile is essentially what India's nuclear submarine program, a large part of it, is all about. Because if this missile test was successful, with the missile, the K-4, reaching targets 3,500 kilometers away, then India's nuclear triad would be complete. We've got airborne nuclear weapons, we've got land-based nuclear missiles, and this would be the naval leg of the nuclear triad. He also spoke glowingly about the success of a hypersonic weapon, an anti-ship ballistic missile, which was also tested quite recently. He said that if I could, I'd want to have that missile in our arsenal tomorrow. This would be a huge force multiplier for the Indian Navy, being able to target specific warships operating in the Indian Ocean region. He did speak about Pakistan as well, the fact that Pakistan is acquiring 8 Chinese-built submarines. He did state that Pakistan seems to be prioritizing its weapons development or weapons acquisition program ahead of the welfare of the people, pointing to the huge expenses involved in acquiring what Pakistan hopes will be a 50-ship navy. As far as China is concerned, the Navy chief did say that India is monitoring the research vessels and other vessels deployed by the Chinese Navy in the waters of the Indian Navy, of the Indian Ocean. He did say that the last time that the Indian Navy tracked a Chinese submarine in the Indian Ocean region was when one sailed into Karachi harbour. He said he's confident that if there were any further Chinese submarines operating in the Indian Ocean region, the Indian Navy would be able to track them as well. With camera person AJ Joseph, Vishnu Shom for NDTV.
All right, troubles mount for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Head of Israel's internal security agency, Shin Bet, has written a very strongly worded letter defending its investigation of the scandal regarding the theft and leaking of classified IDF intelligence reports. He has accused critics of peddling conspiracies and seeking to weaken the agency at a time when it's facing war. Barr's letter responds to a series of bitter allegations, many of which were made publicly a few days ago by the Prime Minister regarding the handling of this case, but it doesn't mention Netanyahu by name. Now, how does this unfold? What does it mean for Israel at a time when it is facing a multi-front war? Let's get in my colleague Mohammad Ghazali to fill us in with the very latest on this. Go ahead, Ghazali, tell us, connect the dots for us.
So the Shin Bet chief, Mr. Ronen Bar, Shin Bet is an organization which is responsible for the internal security of the Israel, and they have been investigating not just the leaks, but failure for the October 7 attack and many other investigations related to the October 7 event, and after that why this was not noticed by the agencies, how come the leaks, and basically in the last 2 months there have been multiple leaks about the hostage negotiation deal happening with Hamas in Gaza, or the ceasefire deal happening with Hezbollah in Lebanon. These documents are repeatedly getting leaked, on which the Shin Bet was holding an inquiry, and later they indicted or sort of arrested 2 aides of Benjamin Netanyahu. There is another accused who is not in Israel right now, so he has been asked, or he has been issued a summon as well. But Benjamin Netanyahu had criticized the Shin Bet's investigation, saying that the way these accused have been arrested and meant to be in handcuff seems like they're terrorists or they're worse than terrorists. And Shin Bet chief today wrote a letter sort of criticizing Mr. Netanyahu for weakening the institution, saying that all these comments amounts to incitement against the institution. And he also said that at a time of war, this is how the government is responding to the investigating agency. Though Mr. Barr didn't name Mr. Netanyahu, but all his responses in the letter was hinted at Mr. Netanyahu and also towards the religious Israeli leaders or Jewish leaders who have accused the Shin Bet investigating agency of castigating the accused of people who have been accused of spying from the Prime Minister's office.
All right, Mohammad Ghazali, appreciate you taking out the time and connecting the dots for us. Shifting focus now to the latest as far as Georgia is concerned, where massive protests have erupted following the government's decision to suspend its bid to join the European Union. Authorities responded with force using tear gas and water cannons, leaving more than 40 people injured over the weekend. The crackdown has drawn strong condemnation from the United States. The arrest has created a political crisis for Georgia's ruling party, which is facing criticism for moving away from the EU integration and leaning closer towards Moscow. In response, the Prime Minister accused the opposition of attempting to overthrow his government, while the pro-EU president has called for new elections. All right, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of India Global. Thanks so much for watching.
Right now, UNICEF is supporting millions of children in emergencies around the world. Teams are bringing medical supplies for children in Yemen, clean water and medicines in Afghanistan, healthcare and safe spaces for Ukraine's children. £32 could help provide a health worker with a large first aid kit. Search UNICEF Supplies now or text SUPPLIES to 61145 because your support brings hope for children caught in crisis.
When Tony passed, we wanted to celebrate him his way. All he ever spoke about was bite this, bite that. I'll never forget our first date. Huge grin on his face as he rode up on that big noisy thing. And that's exactly the way he'd want to be remembered.
At Co-op Funeral Care, we know everyone is different. That's why we offer funeral plans to funeral services that are personal, every step of the way.
Jim has no home this Christmas. Sam's Christmas will bring no comfort and joy. Jake will spend Christmas unwanted and forgotten. This Christmas, please help the Salvation Army reach out to people without a home by calling 0800 655 6180. Your £19 could bring cheer to a homeless person, practical support to families, and a fresh start for a young person. Please help now. Thank you.
It's great to be helping out before my first grandchild arrives. Which reminds me.
Welcome to British Seniors, the UK's #1 rated provider of over 50s life insurance. We're proud to offer our seniors lifetime guarantee. With 100% of claims having been paid, we guarantee your premiums will never go up and that you'll speak to one of our specialists in the UK. Plus, when you sign up, you'll receive a £135 gift card.
Be proud to protect your loved ones with British Seniors. To get a free quote today, call our UK team or visit britishseniors.co.uk.
A rare and beautiful tiger, trapped by vicious steel cables, slowly dying. Another victim of wildlife crime.